Today's grammar point is covering the tag that you'll find in your flashcard software, GW, helper, happening now, 助词, 这. So when we're talking about helpers, we're talking about the little particles in Chinese, like 这 or 了 or 的 or 呢. These different, what grammatical linguists will call particles. But we don't like the word particle because it's not very helpful. 助词, the Chinese word, literally means help word, so we'll call those helpers. Now, before we get too far in the weeds with this particular helper, 这, we want to point out that 这 is not the only way to express that something is happening now in Chinese. You can also use 正, 在, or 正在 before an action, and you can put 呢 at the end of a sentence to indicate that something is currently happening. But for this lesson, we're just going to keep the focus on 这. Now, let's take a look at this first sentence to get a sense of how we might use 这. So the sentence is 台上坐着几个人. A few people are sitting on the stage. So you could think of 这 in this way as meaning ing. So when you add ing to the end of a verb in English, that's the way you express that something's happening now. So a few people are sitting on the stage. But there's other ways you could do this. For example, we go 坐 is sit, 坐着 is sitting, but there's other things you could do. 站 means to stand. 站着 is standing. So while I'm recording this podcast, 我站着, I'm standing. And you could say 跑 means to run. 跑着 means running. So you get the idea of how a simple way to translate 这 is just to add ing. Now, sometimes English is inconsistent, so it might not always work, but that's a general rule of thumb that you can follow. Now, let's take a look at sentence number 2. 他坐着吃饭. He's sitting and eating. Now, you'll notice that in this sentence, there are two actions. There's 坐 and 吃. So we have sitting and eating, but there's only one usage of 这. And that's because you only need to use it once if you have two actions. There's no need to add the second 这. So we can assume that if the speaker adds 这 after the first action of sitting, then the second action of eating is also taking place in the present. So that's just an important thing to note there, that when you have two actions, that's how it can work. Now the next one, from level 16, sentence number 3, 你自己看着办吧. You can do as you see fit. This is a highly useful everyday life sentence. So anytime you just want to leave someone to their own devices, you can use this sentence. 你自己看着办吧. You can do as you like. And we've got those two actions again. We have 看 and 办. So 看着 is like to say seeing. So as you are seeing the situation, 办 to deal with. You can deal with it as you see fit. And the speaker is effectively saying that you have the dealing with being the direct result of the seeing, which is a rather eloquent way of telling someone, do it as you see fit. Now, let's take a look at one more sentence here, just to get across a certain point about this. So this is sentence 4. 哪张床上铺着被子? That bed has a quilt spread over it. The reason we put this sentence in here in this lesson is because it's easy to think of 这 as applying only to fleeting moments. For example, if two people are talking right now, it will quickly pass into the next moment where they aren't talking. But in this sentence, 这 applies to things like a quilt spread over a bed. It's just sort of in that state, most of the time, right? There's a 铺着被子. And so, for example, you might talk about something that's happening in your house currently. For example, your TV. It's hanging on the wall. So, wall is 墙上, 墙上. 墙, and then you usually would say that what's on the wall, so 上, right? So 墙上挂着电视机. So 挂 means to hang, 挂着 is hanging. So a lot of things that are hanging around your apartment are always in that state, and using 这 is appropriate. So we wanted to include this just so you get the idea that 这 can also apply to static things. It's not just fleeting moments. And so again, we'll take a look at these few sentences and keep an eye out for them as you go forward. Stay in the present, as it were, and that's our little pun to help you remember 这 here. And remember that when you see 这 it's a good opportunity to visualize, because whenever you imagine something's happening now, then you can, put yourself in that situation. And of course, Mandarin Blueprint's all about visualization. So visualization occurs naturally when you're reading sentences. So just dig into it. When you're reading a new sentence, really try to visualize it. It's what happens when you're reading a novel. You're visualizing the scenes as it's happening. You can just add a little oil to that, 加油, and you'll find that you bring things into your long-term memory even faster. So that's the grammar point. GW, helper, happening now, 助词这。谢谢你观看我们的这个视频. If you found this video valuable and you'd like us to help you reach fluency and literacy in Mandarin Chinese as fast as possible without all the headache of traditional learning methods, just head to mandarinblueprint.com to learn more. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell below to be notified every time we release a new video. And of course, 保重.